Hello, I'm Rob.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to a conversation about writing, literature, and the culture that feeds them.
Cool.
All right, so
Sam.
what are we getting into today?
Yeah.
An excellent question. So, for our first premiere episode, we're actually going to get into kind of what we what we like to what we like in books, what we don't like in books, uh,
Mhm.
as well as kind of I think we can dabble a little bit in the movies that get made from books as well.
Hmm.
And I think we're gonna actually start out with on the positive side. So one of the things that I really enjoy in a novel is a novel that does its humor well, and you still get a sense of the characters through the humor, and it's
Mm.
humor that automatically you find yourself laughing or getting that sensation to want to laugh.
Right. Do you have any examples
Okay.
of this?
I do. Uh, there's a novel called Bobby Faye's Very, Very, Very Bad Day. And Bobby Faye is a woman who lives in Mississippi. And she is upper class trailer trash, if you would.
Oh,
Her uh very, very bad day. I'm trying to pull up so I don't mess it up. But Bobby Faye is taking care of her niece, who she's trying to get custody of. And she lives in a trailer. And when she wakes up one day, the day of the festival, where she has to go get the crown because she is the pirate queen,
Mm.
she it's a really good book. Um, she wakes up to find that her washing machine has been leaking and her trailer is being turned into a pool. And her niece, instead of waking her up, is playing in the water because she always wanted a pool.
Right.
hmm.
And it just is a day that keeps going worse and worse and worse. Her brother has been kidnapped because he owes someone a bunch of money. And also because it turns out that someone wants Bobby Faye's crown that is worth literally nothing. Her great grandfather made it out of like spare metal, but for some reason these people have to have this crown. And Bobby Faye gets caught up in a bank robbery,
Oh wow.
and it's a crazy crazy book. It's hilarious. It's super funny. Don't read any other books in the series though. Only read the first one.
Bad experience with the others, did you?
The other ones lose that solid humor. Like this
Mm.
book uses the humor really to create that nice pace throughout it.
Right.
And I always get annoyed with this one because it gets shoved under the romance genre, and it's not a romance. There's barely a romance even in this. Like
Oh, okay.
her and the quote unquote leading guy semi hate each other the whole time. Like she causes his beloved pickup to end up in the drink. So
You can relate to that, Rob.
in, in the drink. Is that slang for the ocean, or are we talking about actual drink?
No, it's like a lake.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the yeah, the swamps, the
Surprised you haven't
drank.
heard that one.
Uh, I'm not familiar with the book we're talking about.
No, I would not expect either of you to be familiar with this book, but it's a very good book. Do you have an example of a book that's got a really good sense of humor that you enjoy?
Well, me.
Hmm.
There's Terry Pratchett, of course.
Oh, of course. See, okay, so let's talk about Terry Pratchett. I have yet to be able to finish one of his books. I've
Mm.
tried. I've tried a few different ones,
Yeah.
but
Which
for
ones have you
me,
tried? Do you remember?
let me, I can pull. Let me pull
Prove
up
yourself.
his. So I have read Good Omens, but that one I did enjoy, but
Yeah.
that also had Neil Gaiman.
True.
Um, and I think Good Omens I enjoyed not because of the humor, but because of the story and the characters.
Yep.
Um, let's see. I have tried reading Mort. I haven't tried Guards yet because I know that that's the one that you had recommended.
Oh no, actually,
Is
I would recommend Going Postal as the best one to
Going
start the series
Postal.
with. Yes.
Okay. Moist von Lipwig
Yep.
series.
Just has the most
um,
modern writing and like kind of easiest story to follow, I would say.
okay. Let's see. I'm trying to find the ones that I've tried reading. The Hogfather could not.
Mm.
Guys,
I don't
Hogfather.
I don't
I
remember that one,
just
so it mustn't have been that good.
yeah. Got turned into a movie on Netflix. Actually,
Huh.
still haven't been able to watch the movie either. I I think for that one, gives me a bad taste with it is that it's a humorous, satirical take on Santa Claus
Mhm.
and Christmas and all of that, and I just don't like. I don't like that. It's just like I think he starts off on the wrong foot for me.
Fair enough.
Mm,
So
uh,
it's like the talking animals thing for Murphy.
mhm. Mort too. I've tried to read Mort. Um, Wintersmith is a Discworld novel.
Um,
Oh,
pretty
I
much
didn't,
all of his are really. There's
I didn't realize Wintersmith was by Terry Pratchett. I did enjoy Wintersmith.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe I like some of them, but not all of them. Whereas Christopher Moore,
Mm.
his humor is very crass. But it doesn't pretend to be anything else than that. And he just really like his stuff. I don't know. His humor just hits just right. And it's funny because I think a lot of people would say Terry Pratchett and Christopher Moore maybe have a similar type of humor, but I think they have very different writing styles.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think
Let's see,
Terry
what's
Pratchett's
Christopher Moore?
writing hits more like an urban fantasy style writing, much more modern
Mm.
than Christopher Moore's always does.
Yeah, in a lot of the Terry Pratchett books, the like the comedy is based around the idea of the city, like kind of making an
Mhm,
exaggerated parody of big cities with
mhm.
the street vendors and pollution and all these kind of things. So
Yeah.
might be one
So
of
if we were to
those.
talk about um, specific techniques that those authors use, how do you find that the authors actually reflect humor on the page?
I would say like with Bobby Faye's novel, the reason it's funny is because of the things that the character does. Like what really gives the character life ends up being humorous. And I think that's the same that's actually the truth as well with Christopher Moore is that the humorous bits are actually the parts in his novels that I enjoy that define the character and end up really rounding him out and giving you a little bit more hints as to what their personality is like through their interactions with each other as well as with items. Rarely, rarely are they just cracking a joke to crack a
Mm,
joke. Um, yeah, so the humor is really built into the writing for those.
Mm.
okay.
Uh,
And you probably remember what I was telling you about the Terry Pratchett book a while ago, which is that
mhm,
pretty much every line could be interpreted as a joke in some way.
mhm.
Mm,
Like
that
there's
sounds.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to elaborate, but you probably have something better to say.
Don't discount yourself, buddy. I was just gonna say that sounds so very tedious to write.
Oh,
I
right.
don't know how well it would be to read, but to have to come up with something clever
Hmm.
on every line, or even in every like beat in every scene, you have to have something funny there.
Yeah.
That would be, oh my god, nightmarish for me.
I
Yeah.
think I think that's what it is in books that I usually like is they're not just making a humorous comment on society or something outside of the book. It is directly related to the character, or it's something that the character does that, you
Mm.
could see someone actually doing, or it's so ridiculous, but the description of it really builds that character. I think that that's definitely what I enjoy, is humor that plays more on the characters. And if it happens to also have a commentary on society, then great.
Mm.
Usually that works because you could see that person or that situation in real life. So
Right.
Right.
So I should go ahead and note just I am the least well read of us three. I have read, maybe, if I had to guess, I would say that I've read somewhere between 50 and 100 books, like in my whole
Mhm.
lifetime.
Wow.
Whereas,
you're catching up now. So
Yeah,
well,
you've been the fastest recently, I would say.
Mhm.
have I? I
Yeah.
have
Oh,
only.
Did you guys like the tally of the number of books I've read since June 1st to now?
Oh, do you have that available?
What
do you?
was that tally?
Because we do a competition in my town at the local library. And I have read 25 books since June 1st.
How's that possible? How do you have the time? Oh my God.
It helps when you're a fast reader. And yeah, I find the time. I do enjoy reading far too much.
Okay.
So
So in 2 months, you hit a quarter and or half of my lifetime count.
but you read Count of Monte Cristo, which basically counts as 4 books by most people's standards.
And I'm reading.
And you finished Pride and Prejudice. That's a feat in and of itself.
I will say I did it all because of the audio. If if the audio books weren't available, or if I couldn't get into it, I would have not have been like inclined to go get a physical copy of those books, especially Pride and Prejudice. Oh man, what a what a like ordeal that was to get through. I really feel like it was actually difficult for me to perform, and I didn't have to do anything. I just had to leave it playing and loosely pay attention. But man, there was one time when I realized I had missed about 2 chapters, and I was like, "Oh my God, I have to go back. Like, I can't say I finished the novel and then have skipped 2 chapters." And there's like
Classic.
61 chapters, but still, I don't think I missed anything. That's the worst part.
And I might be wrong here. I suppose I have the internet to check, but Pride and Prejudice and all of Jane Austen's novels are in some ways unique for that time period, because as far as really popular modern popular books, because they weren't released serialized. They were released, I believe, as full novels. Let me double check though. Before I say that. Because that is something that, yeah, it was all released as. Give me. I don't care about the movies.
There are so many movies of Jane Austen's novels.
So many movies. I
Like,
do.
all of her books have like 5 movies.
Actually, that does lead into one of the other things that I actually do really like. So, and it's ironic. I generally don't like original source novels and stories. Jane Austen is a great example. I generally don't like her books. And it's not the writing. Like, the writing style, I don't mind. I don't like her characters. Like, they're generally not very good people. But I love the retellings. I love the modern interpretations of them. One, I think we get to see then how the new author views those characters, which is usually a much better light than I view them in. But but also, I think the reason that this book ended up being so popular was because at the time, it to an extent was a somewhat decent example of what the upper class was like. And the modern interpretations of it, I think, do a better job of representing it than setting it when it was originally published.
Right. Okay.
So, publication history. Here we go. Um,
You're looking at the publication history. for
yeah,
Jane
yeah. So
Austen.
Pride and Prejudice was released as a novel, and I believe her first novel, Sense and Sensibility,
Mm.
were as well. Characters, publication history. Yep. Yeah. hmm which, like, when you look at Sherlock Holmes, that was a serialized novel series.
Yep.
The Count of Monte Cristo, The Three Musketeers, Frankenstein, I don't believe was.
I mean, it's
But
fairly short, isn't it?
Yes, Frankenstein is a very short novel. And also, Frankenstein came out of a challenge that Mary Shelley was a part of, a ghost story writing challenge. And actually, the movie Mary Shelley that came out recently, I haven't checked the accuracy, but I think it does a good job of representing kind of who she was and the life experiences she had.
Cool.
Um,
I
I
didn't
didn't
realize it
this.
came out. Yeah.
It's on Hulu. I started watching it
Ah.
because I'm like, oh, look, it's a Mary Shelley TV series. I was like, wait, this is a big name actress. Oh, it's a movie. Oh. I was a
Wonderful.
little sad. I thought I was going to get a TV series.
Right.
Uh,
So with those serialized novels, where did they actually get published? Where did they get released?
I do believe, and it was kind of like a newspaper or a modern journal.
Hmm. Yeah, that would
Um,
be cool.
because
I like the idea of that.
one of the modern cases, and this was published, I think, during World War II and after World War II, or maybe between the two wars, is The Littles. The Littles were published in, I think it was actually not the New York Times. Littles. Um. Oh yeah, they're published in the 60s. Okay, that answers that question. Um. do-do. I don't want your characters. But it's a children's series, and it was released serialized, but also, like I said, it was a kids series, so which makes sense. I think Scholastic released them in short bits, and
Okay.
then okay, serialized literature.
It seems like we've
Ah,
accidentally transitioned almost into things we don't like, perhaps.
yes, I think we've been hopping back and forth. If you haven't noticed.
Oh, well, I was
Um,
just I don't know. I have if we were to go back to the original subject,
Mm.
I have such a limited repertoire to draw from when it comes to books that I found funny.
Mm.
Lots of the ones that I can think of that were funny are honestly, uh, what would you call them? Mid grade, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Things like Sixth Grade Secrets, um, Loser by what was that by Louis Sachar?
Are these ones you read
Stargirl.
recently or ones you remember?
These are ones I remember from
Okay.
when I was like literally in elementary school and middle school.
Yeah.
And yeah, those books were funny, but it's like those books were, the whole purpose was kind of designed to be
Yeah.
funny
Well, and
as
like Louis
opposed to a
Sacker,
book.
he's a really good author. Like I remember reading his stuff and really enjoying
Mm.
what
Yeah,
he would write.
same thing. I read a lot of his stuff just because his name, like
Mhm.
I recognize, oh, he wrote another book that I like. I'll
I
read
do
another
have
book
an
that he's written.
do have an answer for the serial. So they would actually release like a chapter by itself in a periodical publication. So sometimes it'd be released just by itself. Like I think Charles Dickinson, Great Expectations was released. Just you could buy that chapter. Otherwise, it would be included in a magazine or a newspaper.
Right.
Oh,
Mm,
mhm.
Have you guys
Like
heard of?
Sherlock Holmes was originally in the Strand magazine.
Yes.
okay.
Have you guys heard of Andy Griffiths and Terry Denton?
Terry Denton, yes, and I think I've read Terry Denton.
Well, he's the
Um,
illustrator usually, so that would be interesting if you'd read one of his.
I
There,
should say his name sticks out.
there's a series of very silly books that were the most popular ones when I was in high school, just because they were basically cartoons, but you could pretend you were reading a book for the librarians.
Yes, but for retellings, because we
Yeah.
did touch on that. Um, yeah, hands down, I generally prefer the retellings over the original. If I prefer the original, then I usually don't like the retellings. Period.
Mm.
Um, but one of the retellings I almost always like is Beauty and the Beast retellings. And
Yeah.
the original story of Beauty and the Beast is creepy. Kind of. It's kind of creepy.
It is.
Because Beauty and the Beast, I think there is some folklore that you can definitely argue it's based on.
Right.
But the original story of the Beauty and Beast in French has like monkey servants and fae children and just a changeling I think is involved in it. Like
Right.
it really goes out there. Whereas the retellings boil it down much better to a more simple story structure that I think works a lot better than the original did.
Right.
Hmm.
And-
I imagine most
oh.
of us have only ever experienced the Disney version.
There are some really good book retellings. There's also some excellent movies and TV shows. There is a Beauty and the Beast that was released in the early 90s. And actually the screenwriting is by George R. Martin. It won a ton of awards. Went on for I believe 3 seasons. That's actually available on Amazon Prime.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've heard him
Show.
talk about that in some of his interviews.
Hmm. And actually, they did like a reboot of it, kind of with the 2012 Beauty and the Beast they had on the CW. At 1987, I was slightly off. It was late 80s, and it ran until 1990.
Mm.
Um, and that one puts them in modern day, and is really interesting. First season's the best season, hands down.
Usually is.
Hands down.
You know,
uh,
I don't watch any of the CW shows ever since The Vampire Diaries.
yeah, that definitely set a new tone for the CW because before that you had Smallville, and Smallville was a good show. Um,
Yeah.
the CW, let's see, pull up their shows list.
And I don't think it
Um,
really exists as an entity in Australia, so I haven't really had any exposure to it. But there is a box set of
uh,
Smallville on the shelf beside me.
and so Smallville's from the CW, the Supernatural's from there. all of the new DC live action TV series, so The Flash, DC Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Riverdale, which I have some problems with Riverdale.
What about Batwoman?
Batwoman.
I've been watching some people have a lot of fun watching it, but not for the intended reasons.
Nice. Seventh Heaven was on CW for a while. Reaper's a great show. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I think, was pretty good.
Are we talking about CW shows?
Yes,
Yes.
this is the new podcast.
This is how this is.
Sam just, not only has Sam read a billion books, she has also seen a million TV shows.
I did not hang out with other children that much growing up. Like I lived on I lived on TV shows, old movies. Like I loved the Turner Classic Movie Channel, so I've seen a lot of old movies too. Like I've seen so many old movies that my honest favorite movie, which is The Gas Lamp. I think there's a Gas Lamp movie. Or a Gaslight movie. Gaslight movie from 1944. That is the first movie that Angela Lansbury was in, or one of the first ones.
Oh, Angela Lansbury.
Yeah, she's like a 17-year-old girl in this. Like,
imagine that. Who's Angela Lansbury?
she is the voice of Mrs. Potts in the original Disney Beauty and the Beast. She is also, I'm pulling up her IMDb. That's the nice thing about doing this with access to the internet. Like we can just Murder, She Wrote. Did you ever watch Murder, She Wrote?
No, but I heard of it.
Okay, let me.
You're too worldly for us, Sam.
I assumed that she was in Golden Girls or something.
No, she was not. She wasn't that old when Golden Girls was on. Maybe she was. Maybe she's been old forever. Yeah. I don't know. Outside of Murder, She Wrote and like the voiceover stuff she does, because she does a lot of voiceover stuff. I don't know. I don't know.
So, Rob, what are your favorite movies/TV shows?
Oh man, would you believe me if I tell you that I don't have a huge list to draw from?
I don't see how that's relevant.
My favorite, some of my favorite movies, honestly, have been, like, I guess you could say Disney movies. If you want to talk about like what a favorite movie actually means, as opposed to a movie that you just watch.
Yeah.
Like some of my most rewatched movies, Hercules, Mulan, Aladdin. I would say probably Aladdin or Hercules are my favorite. And I think that those movies, a lot of times they get, kind of discredited for being like as good as they are. There's some really competent storytelling in all of them.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that they managed to fit in, like humor. Obviously, the movies are sort of designed for children, and the singing. Occasionally, they'll have like actual routines that they do, like they've got choreography and stuff. And I'm talking about the cartoons here. I've only seen the live action remake of The Lion King and Aladdin, which I both like those, but I like the cartoons more.
Yes. I think that's most people's opinion.
Yeah, I don't hate on The Lion King. It got a lot of flack. I actually thought it was pretty good. But the reason that I like the cartoon more actually didn't have a whole lot to do with the like the visual style.
No.
I just like the cartoon more because I thought the cartoon was funnier. Like I thought that it told the
Nope.
story in a more palatable way than just some of the stuff that the live action tried to go for.
100% agree.
Mm.
100% agree. They that was kind of the one thing that they should have done differently. I think in the live action was they should have updated the jokes and the telling to fit the format. At
Yeah.
least with the other live actions, they made some really big changes. Um,
Yeah. I will
whereas,
say also. Oh, go ahead.
well, the Lion King didn't. It was almost scene for scene the same as the original.
Yep.
Yeah.
But shot like it was a documentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead,
didn't
Rob.
really care for a couple of the voice.
Yeah. Oh no. Getting some connection issues here. Are you still there?
Yep.
It seems like Rob isn't, unfortunately.
That was very random.
Should we just keep talking or wait for him to come back?
We can give him a few moments.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to send him a message
Oh,
just in case he doesn't know?
yeah. Yeah. I will say this is going exactly the way I thought it was going to, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Flowing very naturally.
This is why I was kind of mystified that you guys wanted to be so professional about it. It's like, oh, I gotta buy a microphone and gotta set up the right time. But we're just gonna be chatting.
Yeah.
Simba,
Oh,
you have to come back to Pride Rock.
he's
It's
back.
just like, oh,
I
can you
don't
guys
think
not
he
hear me?
knows he left.
Your voice was gone for like a minute just then.
Oh no. What did you guys hear?
All
Simba,
we heard
you
was
have
just
to
now,
come back to.
It was a great intro to come back in on.
Perfect.
Okay, well then I won't touch it. I'll leave it like that. But no, I was
Yeah.
just saying that performance that Beyonce gave as Nala was it wasn't Nala. It was Beyonce.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of that's the problem that you have when you have a lot of sort of like big name persons, I guess, not even just actors in this case,
Correct.
but big name people that you want to bring into a project
Mm.
is a lot of times I think that those people are under the impression that they're in the story because you want them, as
Yes.
opposed to you want something that they can bring to your character.
To be fair,
You know?
I feel like for the most part that is why they are brought on into the story. It's for the name recognition.
Yeah.
But
It could be, but I
yeah.
mean, there's with another thing that they tried to do with the new Lion King is
Mm.
that they tried to get pretty much exclusively a black or African heritage cast,
Oh really?
which
Yep.
I
That was the
thought
thing
John
they
Oliver
made a
played the
point of.
parrot.
They made a
yeah,
point with the new one of like that was one of the selling points I think of it. Honestly, I think
yeah,
it was a gimmick a little
Yeah.
bit.
it was a little bit, yeah, because let me tell you, Jeremy Irons was fucking fantastic. Oh, shouldn't
Yeah.
be cussing. Jeremy Irons was super good
have to bleep it now.
as Scar, and he's still alive. Like
Yeah.
they brought in James Earl Jones as Mufasa. They could have got Jeremy Irons as Scar, but
Yeah.
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 Oh, well.
somebody had said on the YouTube comments for one of the trailers
Mm.
that I think his name is Chadwick Boseman. I think
Yes.
that's who they had play Scar in the live action.
Yeah.
Somebody has said that he sounds like David Attenborough.
Well,
'Cause
and like
he just had that like very soft and kind of like I don't know, relatively like old sounding tone.
yeah,
It just sounded like so.
it wasn't intimidating at all. It was not Scar.
Yeah,
And I think that's kind of where the cartoon versions of the movies did really well because they were casting for a voice. Like they got Earl Jones because he had the voice. And I was trying to think of an example with kids where well they didn't cast the right ethnicity. And actually, the best example I have um, of fairly recent Disney history is Brother Bear.
Mm.
Oh,
Because Brother Bear is all Native American story, like it's based on Native American myths,
Yep.
right?
hmm
And the little boy, the little brother bear in it was a young African American boy because he had the right tone.
Mm-hmm.
It's an animated feature. I get for Aladdin and things like that casting. Like, yeah, okay. Like it's a voice. You just need someone whose voice fits the character.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so
And you know what sucks about that too, though,
Mm,
is I heard. First of all, I am generally speaking a fan of that idea. I do think if you're going to have actual people, um, there has to be, like for Aladdin, there has to be
yeah,
someone, vaguely Arabic, I will
yeah,
say, just because
yeah,
it doesn't take place in a real,
yeah.
in a real place. Vaguely Arabic that you can hire who will accurately perform that role.
Mhm.
Like Will Smith.
But well, they did, Will Smith was a magical creature. He wasn't,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have to necessarily be
He
Arabic.
could have traveled from very far distant lands. Honestly, like that's one nice thing with the Genie character is you could kind of make that anyone like any ethnicity
Mm.
because that type of character fits in a lot of things. Except I think European. I think European myth doesn't really have a genie character, but
Mm.
Eastern does. African, I think some cultures do. Ar- the Arabic culture definitely does.
Mm.
Did you guys know that the original story of Aladdin took place in China?
Hmm. Oh
Yes.
yes.
That's what that was actually like when they first started doing that in my head, I imagined some like this is going to sound so bad, but some bald Asian guy with the long like mustache. You know what I'm talking about, right? The like
Yeah,
Sure.
the Fun Chu.
yeah,
What is it
the
called?
the ones that you always see in paintings, right?
Yep.
That's what like originally before they announced it was going to be Will Smith when there was like rumors it might happen. In my head, that's kind of what I saw the genie looking like.
Hmm.
If it was
Oh,
going to be a
Fu
human.
Manchu.
Probably
Is
would
the
have been
Yes.
better.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I
I
can
don't
I
know.
can kind of see that
So
Hmm.
because that would be kind of like the way that they did the ancestors in Mulan.
mhm. Yes. Yep. Now, has Mulan the live action come out yet?
They delayed it
Okay.
because of
Okay.
all the COVID stuff. I think it was supposed to come out this year.
Yeah. Mulan is an interesting one. So there's a Chinese live action that I have to find. I've heard it's amazing because Mulan is based. I think it's based on a true story. Like the myth itself is based on something that happened.
Joan of Arc, right?
No, happened in China.
Ah, of course, of course.
I think Joan of Arc was
But it
after Mulan.
but Mulan is a I think a kind of important myth and folk tale in China, um, and it's I've heard really good things about the Chinese movie, and I think that's one where because it is important there, it'd be really nice to go see that. My favorite live action of Beauty and the Beast is a French movie that
Hmm.
came out in 20, I think it was 2015. Fantastic movie. And because I think what aids to it is one, it's a French folk tale. Like Beauty and the Beast is from France, the original story. And the French folks who made it really embodied all that that was for the time period it's set in. So you have these beautiful, pretty accurate costumes, beautiful settings, and then you also get the personalities that are kind of unique to French culture and how they interact with one another and how they really treat one another.
Right.
That
Hmm.
I don't think you really get away with in a lot of other Western societies. So um, that and that yeah. Um, as far as retellings go, that particular version, I think it's a 2015 Beauty and the Beast in France, and they actually have an English dubbed that most of the actors did themselves, which I
Right.
like if you're gonna dub it. Like have the original actors if they can speak English, and then you still get that French accent. Like it's yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
Correct
I
delivery
but
like
as well,
the
I guess.
accents.
okay, you know what? Let's we can shift over to a different thing. We're gonna go for something that I definitely don't like, and I think you guys will agree with me.
Let's see.
Poorly edited novels and really poorly written novels, and written kind of is a vague term,
Mm.
but I'm talking where the grammar is bad, where you're reading something and you read a paragraph and you don't even understand what they're trying to say. Right?
I think
Uh,
I'd give up on those after a few pages, probably,
I
if I'd
I
actually picked it up
do.
as a book.
I do. I give them 3 chapters. Like you got
Mm.
3 chapters to try and redeem yourself or make me interested. And my big thing too is if I pay for it, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have higher standards. If I'm like on
Yeah.
Wattpad or something and
Yeah.
the plot itself is interesting enough, but the writing sucks, I'm like, I'm not paying for it. Let's keep reading.
Very generous of you.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think that I've ever stuck out a bad book. It was bad because it was like a incompetence on the writer's part.
Mm.
Yeah, no, and I find it most often in self-published novels,
Yes.
or ones where they're published by a publisher, but all you really do is pay to have them print your book out for you. Like,
Mm. I'm gonna say
um,
I don't think I have much experience reading those kind of books, honestly.
I don't recommend it. Don't recommend it at all. Uh,
Most of the
let
books.
someone else weed through the self-published and find
Yeah.
you the
Yes.
holy grail, the gems, because there's some really great gems in self-published world
Yeah.
stuff that doesn't currently sell well. That's one of the big things is that if it's not something that's marketable in today's market,
Yeah.
either A, that author needs to sit on it, or
Mhm.
B, they can self-publish.
Hmm.
Um, and
I thank you for your service then.
if you ever want a couple of good ones that I like, I can definitely recommend a few.
Mm.
There's so many bad though too. Oh, the I
Yeah.
think the other thing that comes with that then, because I've met some of the self-published authors, is
Mm.
that they then get this grandiose idea that well, I have a published book, therefore I am a real author. Let me give you advice. And it's like you paid someone to print your book. Your book
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
grammatical errors in it. Like I
Look,
found ones
mom.
with spelling mistakes. Like stop.
Yeah.
Look, mom. I'm a real author now.
Yeah.
I'm a real author.
I'm a real boy.
I'm a real boy. Yeah. I see that. I see that even on the local level. Anytime someone gets sufficient enough praise, it seems like even on something like let's just say Wattpad,
Mhm.
Mm.
uh, you can expect that those people will now consider themselves to be sort of like on a higher tier,
Yep.
to where
Yeah,
they're qualified to
give
basically speak
advice.
and you listen,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to having a conversation.
It, it's so frustrating whenever I see stuff like that, or like they're the ones giving advice on how to get published. Like you're not published. What? What are you? No, don't give me advice on how to be published. I'm like I always am tempted to be like, I do critiquing on the side. Like I've critiqued hundreds of books. And I like talk to some publishers and agents and stuff will reach out to me. I think I maybe know a little bit more than you do what kind of books the industry is publishing. Like,
Mm.
and I have a vague idea a few months before it's actually released, kind of what stuff's gonna be coming up. I'm like, uh,
Mm.
and yeah, no, but self published work, and yeah, I Wattpad. Oh, Wattpad has some really interesting plots. It does. There are a couple of novels that did get published out of that that are actually they're Hades and Persephone
Mm.
retellings,
Oh,
which
okay.
is another. Oh, I love Hades and Persephone retellings. I almost always read those.
Mm.
Usually, they do a better job of representing Hades in how he is portrayed in the myths than as much as I love Hercules than Hercules does.
Yeah. Very strange
And I love
personality in
Hades.
that movie.
Yeah, I love him in it, but like the Hades and Persephone do a better job. But that one was published, and actually with that one, I found it originally. I think it was published through a very small publisher, and found out that it was originally published on Wattpad. So then I was able to go and read the rest of the books on Wattpad.
Wow.
So, uh,
Well,
uh,
what's funny about stuff like that though is that is that's kind of how you want to build your career. Is you
mhm,
want to get some stuff, you want to put it out there, and basically you want to see who's eager for more. Like either more from you or more from, this particular story or writing style or what have you. Because George R. R. Martin and Brandon Sanderson, they
Hmm.
talk a lot about how they sort of built not only their skill and their understanding of the industry, but also something of a fan base by doing competitions and contests.
Mm.
yeah,
And in those, in the days that they were growing up, where they really didn't have internet at the time that they had started writing, that was kind of like how you got your name out there.
Mhm.
The magazine that you order, they say, hey, we're having a sci-fi contest. Submit us, a piece of this many words with this topic, and if it's good, we'll put it in our, anthology or something like that. And the both of them, the both of them, sort of like reminded people that those sorts of competitions still go on, and
yeah,
Mm.
sometimes you actually get paid for them. Sometimes it's just good because this is your work that's getting put out to people who are, guaranteed to have at least one reason to be interested in it,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very very good point. Um, is let's see, I'm looking at
Yeah.
uh oh okay. So with Wattpad and with self-published authors and with mainstream authors, like maybe this is kind of more of an issue with a lot of modern day books, and they're very much the summer reads, right? The books that come out and it's really popular for the summer, and then no one ever talks about them again.
Yeah.
And that's super unrealistic characters.
Mm.
The characters that are just completely over the top and um, just are outrageous, never slow down, um, and are very they kind of like they can be well rounded, but they're just not realistic. You don't see people like that outside of a book.
Mm.
Um, and it's really common in beach reads of like the crazy best friend, or in a lot of the like light humor ones, the the chick, the main character. This is a problem I've noticed in a lot of contemporary romances. It just bothers me.
Yeah.
Is they make the main chick kind of flighty, not kind of super flighty, but she's also really funny and she's so sassy and she's sassy with everything she says. And oh my gosh, the sass. And then the guy falls in love with her because, oh my gosh, all of that sass and her crude mouth and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's maybe a few of those people exist.
Yeah.
But not that many people exist like that. And I think the people who are like that probably don't have as interesting of a life as they portray. Like the uh, this idea that every book, every like not every, but a lot of the contemporary romance novels needs a sassy best friend, or the character just needs to be so independent. They don't
Mm.
need no man. They don't need no man. They don't need no one. And then they break down crying. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I honestly don't know that many people who are that opposed to help and who don't have like problems. Like
Yeah.
pretty sincere problems.
Some,
Um,
What
some
would you
weird.
say is a good example of that sort of story?
let me
And
Lord.
as an
I
extra
got
challenge, one that we've heard of.
oh. Actually, for unrealistic characters, hands down Twilight. Twilight's main character,
Mm.
and I think their lead. That's an easy one for
Hmm.
like not going sassy, just a poorly written character. In my opinion, it's a very flat character and
Mm.
very unrealistic. I think she's very much unrealistic character. But let me
Your hands, they're cold as ice.
yeah, and let me the whole I watched you while you were sleeping. Like that's creepy, guy. Like I'm sure that could be
It's
really
glowing.
endearing in some instances, but like that's
Mm.
creepy, guy.
I don't think there's any circumstance. I mean, maybe after like, I don't know, you had just gotten married or something
Yeah.
that really causes you to be like
I could
reflective
see,
about,
you
oh,
know where
there's
I
this
could
person right here.
you know where I could see that and that does make sense is like after a couple has a baby.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah. Like once there's a baby involved, I think that's when that really starts to be like, all right, you know what, this, yeah, people probably would do that. Like especially a husband, like either during the pregnancy when the wife's been having a really tough time and she's finally passed out. I could see him like doing that, or when you've got the new baby and like that. Yeah, okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
Because I do see that. Like that is a thing that husbands and wives both do once they have a baby. Before the baby grows up to be an extra annoying toddler all the time.
Mhm.
No, babies can be really
Yeah.
sweet.
Can be.
But yeah, there
Yeah,
are
they
times where,
can be.
it's it's fathomable to me that you would want to, kind of just sit there and admire this person that you are in love with, right?
Yeah.
But just to be like, I don't know. And then when you just say like, I watched you as you slept, like, well, for how long? You know, were you sitting there for 8 hours while I slept? Just what were
Mm.
you thinking about? Like, what were you doing? You did nothing else. It's just, I don't know. It's strange.
Um. Okay. I've got. No. Have you guys heard of the author Jude Devereaux?
No.
Okay. She's written a lot of stuff. She's a fairly popular author, but let me keep looking here for something you guys would.
You have too much to draw from is the problem, Sam.
Mm.
I do. I really do.
Well, perhaps we can
Um,
shelve this because next week we are planning to talk about a story which you have recommended, which might
that's right. That is
fit into
right. That
this
would be a much
category.
better. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That would be.
Look,
That would
I
be.
I figured out a good way to do this. How about we ask Rob for his opinions on good and bad stories, since then we'll
Ooh,
all have read them.
true. Rob.
I've only read the mainstream stuff.
Go
I'll
ahead.
need to brainstorm like a list of all the books I've read,
Or
and you
Actually,
know I
just say
actually,
something
Rob,
fine.
you liked that you read
Go ahead.
recently, I would say. Or Sam, you,
you
you might have a
you
better
d-
suggestion.
you do have an example of one with very unrealistic characters, which is the Jane Austen novel you just finished reading.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's how those people perform, but they seem so exceedingly just. I don't know. They didn't say each other's names. That really that really started to grind on me after a
Mm,
while. You know what? Briefly, I'll just touch on why didn't really enjoy that novel, like in almost any respect. I had started to read it just for the writing, as opposed to like it being a classic or anything like that. But I couldn't even get into the writing. So there's flowery, and then there's wordy, just needlessly verbose. And
mm,
Jane Austen was definitely just needlessly verbose. Uh, there was just the whole idea that marriage is so important in this, that, and the other. For one, I think that it almost doesn't make for a good plot for a story. If that is the sole thing that's going on, is it's culturally appropriate for these women to begin, courting, or rather to be courted, and for them to get married.
mm.
That situation isn't like interesting to anybody except for those characters.
Well, I imagine
So
back in the time it was written, it might have been more interesting.
I think that it might have been more interesting to people who were like in that same situation,
Yes,
right?
which was
Whereas
yeah, lots of people back
just
then.
for the aristocracy, like anybody else is not going to be interested in like all these details about, oh, here's how, Mrs. Bennett gets, you know, wooed or whatever. And then let's talk about Mrs. Bennett. There are at least like three women who are referred to as Miss Bennett, one who's referred to as Mrs. Bennett, and all of them can be, damn near interchangeable. Like one of the first things that gets said is that apparently Mrs. Bennett, the mother of this family, is like the best looking of all of them. And so they spend a little bit of time, talking about how, oh, well, if only Mrs. Bennett hadn't been taken, then blah, 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 blah. They talk about how, first of all, I don't know if this is common or not for that time frame, but Austen kind of describes her family as kind of nasty towards one another.
Mm.
Like Mrs. Bennett, the mother, has like clear favorites, and it's very visible in the way that she speaks to her certain children that she likes Jane the best. Um, she doesn't really care for Elizabeth like almost at all, and Elizabeth being the sort of main character. Like she becomes the main character as the novel goes on,
Mm.
and the rest of them like don't matter at all. They just pop in here and there. I think there's three other sisters. The only one who really comes up, I think, is Lydia, who is like maybe it's just those three, but Lydia, who she like runs away, she elopes with some guy, and that leads to like the climax and conclusion of the novel. It was just so inane, like it was so fucking boring. I'm getting bored just like describing it to you guys.
Yep.
They they didn't do anything. The whole novel was just, oh my god, I just realized. It's one of those damn stories that's based on a misunderstanding.
Yep.
Mhm, mhm.
So, have you read Pride and Prejudice, Jake?
I have read a few Jane Austen stories, but I don't remember which one it was or ones they were.
Yeah, well, in this one, basically there's this guy, Darcy,
Mm.
who he's like kind of an asshole, but he's also like not really like I guess the better way to say it is that he's sort of proud and sort of aloof,
Hmm.
and that causes him to be sort of, you know, I guess less than courteous when he's talking to people. Although he
Hmm.
never really like insults anybody or does anything like that. They're just like, oh, well, he's so proud. I could never stand to be in his presence, and in fact, I won't suffer it because blah 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 blah. And 10 years ago, blah, it's just too much. So
I so here's a question that kind of relates to Jane Austen and a lot of classic literature that arguably very few people actually enjoy.
Hmm.
um, is it considered a classic because at that time it managed to find the right niche so it became popular, like the Twilight novels?
Hmm.
Um, or is it considered classic because it is a well written novel that accurately reflects the times and whatnot? And
I
what
yeah.
do you think? What do you
My
think?
theory is that most of the books that are considered classics are ones that have easily dissectable themes, specifically ones related to topics that are interesting to learn about as like historically,
Ye-
as
Okay,
opposed
yeah,
to
that would
quality or enjoyment levels.
that makes sense. Yeah, because
yeah, I
Jane
can agree.
Austen sold her novels when she was alive, but they didn't really take off until after she died.
Yeah.
That's when they got popular.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and there
whereas,
is actually no. Go ahead.
oh no, you go.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say there is a theme actually in Pride and Prejudice,
Mhm.
A theme.
and there might be more than one that I didn't pick up on, but
Yeah.
that theme being this sounds so fucking stupid.
You
Excuse me.
swore again.
Language.
I know you're gonna have to bleep me out. This sounds so silly. The theme is basically don't be overly proud and don't be overly prejudiced.
Yes.
Get to
What?
know people before you make assumptions about them.
Wow. So you're saying that I could get a similar level of information from reading the title?
Yes.
Yeah, you could get a similar level of information from reading like a children's book.
No, wait.
You
You
could
need
get
to
a
read the
similar
book.
level of information from like a stern talking to from your parents.
You need to read the book to know whether Pride and Prejudice are good things or bad things. Is the key.
I think novels that are in that realm that are actually good
Mm.
are, so you have like the Count of Monte Cristo, which is Count of Monte Cristo, which is about revenge.
Mm.
Um, but it has a lot of other things, and it does one of the things that I prefer for books to do, where if you read the first chapter of Monte Cristo and then you go and read the last chapter of Monte Cristo, you will be confused. You cannot see that
For
ending
sure.
coming from where it starts.
Yes.
Um, it
AKA
is,
a story instead of a collection of
yeah,
words.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's the same with like the Sherlock novels. Yes, they're murder mysteries. That's what Sherlock does. He's a detective, but you cannot understand the book from the beginning and end. Whereas um,
Mm.
a lot of books now, a lot of books that I read,
Yeah.
I can start the book and I can, within the first few chapters, predict how it's going to end.
Mm.
Like, um, which is nice for like an easy beach read. Like that's what you want. There are some books that you know what you want. You want to get what you want. You just want to
Yeah.
read a book that gives you what you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a Simpsons episode.
Yes. Yep.
Homer will screw up
A
and lose
Simpson.
everything at the end.
Exactly. Um, but the
Well,
the best classics don't do that
Mm.
and make you want to find out how did they get here? How?
How did I get here?
Yeah.
yeah, and you know what I think that comes down to a lot is obviously plot complexity,
Mhm,
but also to put it in like easily understandable terms, what that means is that there's a subversion there. Like
mhm,
your book is not immediately, or that is to say, what it seems like your book is immediately about
Mm.
gets resolved or gets altered in some way, sort of
Yeah.
closer towards the middle, either in the beginning of the middle or after the middle. And now the story is really about something else.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest compliments you can pay an author or a writer, they don't have to be published author, but a writer is when you read their work and you tell them, I had no idea what was going to happen. And in the case of so someone's being attacked, the biggest compliment you can give that author, if it's true, is the fact that I know I was at the start of the novel, but I kept thinking you were going to kill the main character in the first chapter. Uh, and I think that's really the tone that you need to build in your novel, is the feeling that to elevate it that last little bit is the feeling of the reader is right in the moment with the characters.
Hmm.
uh, there's a way to do that even when they already know what the ending is. There are lots of books. I think John Scalzi does this every now and again,
Mm.
where it opens with what the ending's going to be, but it's like, hey, we're going to go back and we're going to tell you about the rest of this. And even though you know what the ending is, you still get that tension.
Mm.
Mm.
What has John Scalzi written other than Old Man's War?
He's written Red Shirts, which is a play on. So have you guys seen Star Wars? Not Star Wars. Star Trek. Have you seen Star Trek?
Yes.
I've seen some of it.
Okay, so have you heard? The claim that
Yes.
is true that the
Yeah.
guys in red shirts are the ones who always die.
I-
Yeah.
Yes. So it isn't technically Star Trek, but it's based in a very similar world with a very similar
Homage.
crew,
Yes.
and it's about the extras. And
Mm.
it's about the extras, and what it is they've taken the crew, and in this world they're saying that when that TV series started, this particular crew and ship got altered. So
Mm.
yeah, you now have your main characters who always live, and it's known that when you go on to a planet with those characters and you aren't a main character, you will die. You are taking your life into your own hands. They literally have a black box, just like in the original TV series, where they put the thing in the box, they get out a printout, they read the printout, and you'll go ask the scientists about it, and they're like, we don't know, we just put things in the box. And we scurry away, and anytime the main characters walk into a room, all of these actual crew members who have actual jobs disappear because they don't want to be called on.
All right. So is it more comedy focused then?
It is. It very much is a comedy focus, but
Mm.
it's a nice dry humor. And the comedy comes from these characters aren't trying to be funny. They're sincerely terrified for their lives, and they have
Yeah.
no idea what's going on. But the comedy comes in that you do. Like, if you've seen Star Trek, you have an idea. It's like, okay, where are they gonna go with this? What's gonna happen with the red shirts? Are they
Yep.
gonna live? Are they gonna die?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fun. Because I guess that's a pretty big contrast to Old Man's War, which is the series that I've read from John Scalzi.
Yes, and that is a very good series, and
Yeah.
it is very different. The only thing similar is they're both sci-fi. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Maybe that would
You
be
know-
a good one for us to read at some point to talk about. What either of those two?
Mhm.
Yeah, could be. You know what story? I thought I knew how it was gonna end, and it was totally like, oh, that was way, way different. Um,
Mm.
1984.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but I did watch the movie, and as I understand, the movie was a pretty good adaptation of the book.
Yeah.
So the spoilers. the whole
Spoiler warnings. Spoiler warnings.
For 1984.
yeah, for
It's really too late to be
1984.
spoiled at this point, but
Because
Yes.
the plot's already come to pass in real life. So.
Oh yeah, it's come true. The whole idea is that you know at least that I had, is that he's gonna, basically try and break out of this dystopian society,
Mm.
and he's gonna take some knocks along the way, but ultimately, because it's a dystopia, like I expected that he wasn't gonna make it,
Mm.
right? Um, well, I was right, but the way that I was right was totally like unforeseen to me.
Mm.
So about midway through the book or
The book.
the movie, I didn't read the book. About midway through the movie, he gets busted, um, and it's revealed that they essentially have monitors like in places that you wouldn't think that they had monitors, in
Mm.
addition to having actual cameras and stuff where you do see them.
Yep.
So that's how he got caught, and he gets interrogated by this guy who is just really like almost sort of like, yes, I know I'm the bad guy, but it's a bad world. So am I really the bad guy? And it was super interesting to watch because I was just like stuck in this perpetual like, okay, well, so are you gonna let him go? Like,
Mm.
and I didn't really know how it was gonna work out, and so no, the guy doesn't let him go. He does eventually break Winston, the main character,
Mm.
and the movie the movie resolves in a way that you realize that it wasn't really about Winston like ever breaking free of the society.
Mm.
The movie was really about like
Me too.
if I understand it correctly, it was about a couple things. But the movie really, what really struck home to me with the movie was that it seemed like it was about why you couldn't break free of that society.
Mm.
And in that sense, the society itself becomes like uh, this overarching character
Yep.
to where it's like, here's the story of this society, as opposed to here's the story of this character, Winston.
Yep.
And
So,
so when the story ends with, at least when the movie ends, with Winston sort of sitting in this cafe and he's been reconditioned, so to speak,
mm.
to be, I never really understood like if they still killed these people or what happened, but he's sitting in this cafe that people go to once they've been like publicly disgraced, and he's watching someone else like say the things that he had to say, where it's like, I'm a what was their enemy, communists or something like that, or Jews or something like that.
I
It
don't know.
was, I'm one of our society's enemies. I was led astray by this evil Jewish doctor who corrupted me. I became his agent.
Mm.
I diddled with prostitutes. I, I did all of this other, mildly socially unacceptable stuff. And and I thank Big Brother for, providing light to my life and this, that, and the
Mm.
other. And he was sitting there watching someone else say that, like shortly after he had to say that, and he's like, "Yeah, get him, that evil doctor. He corrupted me, and he'll corrupt so many other people." And it just shows you, like, okay, that's the whole point of the story is that, that sort of like indoctrination, that sort of like brainwashing,
Yep.
and this sort of society as a whole, it's not it's not something that you can escape from. It's not something that you can just defeat.
Yep.
Uh, it is something that you have to like pretty much avoid entirely, or all hope is lost.
Mm. So most people see it as a dark prophecy almost of warning what we should avoid in our societies.
Yeah, and I can see why they would say that because
Yeah.
a lot of the things that that government does in that movie is kind of sort of the stuff that you would expect the government to do to some degree.
Mm.
Like you expect a government to provide information to its people.
Yep.
You expect the government to provide security to its people, and you expect the government to sort of root out the bad things in your society, right?
Yep.
Well, in 1984, they sort of corrupt like all of those things that people think a government is supposed to do.
Yep.
And the government protects the society only in like the barest sense. Like they regularly get bombed by the enemies.
Mm.
They regularly suffer from quote unquote, enemy agents, which are really just political dissidents. Um, they provide false information. Nobody even, they're constantly changing the name of the country that they're at war with.
Yep.
Uh,
Eurasia
and
and
it's just like,
East Asia.
yeah, it's just like East Asia is our ally. We've never been at war with East Asia. We've always been at war with Eurasia. And then they'll just flip flop throughout the movie to the point where I forgot who they were at war with. And it's just like there's that idea that are they really at war with anybody, or is it just the government doing it to itself? You know. So I think that that's why 1984 became as widely renowned as it is. It's just because it seems plausible when you have so much of this society kind of accurately reflecting what a government should do, but then so wholly corrupting all of those things. It's not just like, oh, bad things, happen and now we're Nazis.
Hmm.
No, it really seems like that could have happened to a society, especially after something like World War II, where you had lots of societies kind of broken or extremely damaged
Mm.
and that needed to be built up in some way. In fact, that is how post World War One Germany became
Yeah.
World War II Germany.
I was gonna
because they were-
say you're missing a real good example there.
Well, yeah, they were crushed after World War One,
Mhm.
and it made it all too easy for a nice young charismatic speaker like Hitler to come in and just get everybody's hopes up on all the things he said.
Like how Hitler was a terrible person, but how he rose to power is really interesting because his party was not like the most powerful. It wasn't the most liked. It was all through appeals and propaganda and kind of timing everything just so. Um, it that's what I kind of wish um, the Western world at least would take the time to actually learn how that happened so that you can recognize it when it's
Mm.
happening again.
Yeah, we just learned Hitler bad. And
Yeah,
turn it.
Hitler's bad. Hitler's horrible.
Hitler bad.
Also, Trump is like Hitler.
uh, we're not gonna go in politics. No
No,
politics.
no way.
But uh, and but it'd be interesting. It would be beneficial, I think, to learn
Yes.
that. Also, when writing novels, right, and you want a bad character,
Mm.
having just a blanket evil character is all right for certain fantasies things as well as children's books. Your
Yep.
bad guy doesn't really need a reason to be bad. He could just be bad. Like but when it comes to writing those more realistic characters, you really need to build that character because just saying someone's bad doesn't actually mean they're bad, right?
Mm.
Um, people have a lot of different facets, and someone had to get there. Like, you had to get to that point.
Mm.
And in
Zuko.
literature, it gives you a really good opportunity to kind of explore that and see, well, what was the turning point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Classic tragics.
There was a
tragedies with the hubris.
Mhm. Mhm.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, there's a conversation that comes up every now and then that is it okay to have a villain who's just evil? Which, some people say never. Your villain has to, have a
Yeah, but
legitimate motive
those are the crazy people who
versus.
don't like The Lord of the Rings, so
Yeah, I think you can definitely have a character that's just evil, but I think that there's cases where it works, right? So when it's a mythical being, when it's a god, when it's a wizard,
mm,
something like that, where they have this unlimited power. Yeah, you don't really need a reason for them to be bad. They can just be bad.
mm,
Um,
Yeah.
and
I've
same
met
too with
people
like
who are just bad people. So
yeah,
they definitely exist.
yeah, they definitely exist. Um, I think it's more it has to work with the story you're writing. If you're trying to write a really complicated story or the other twist on it that I actually like as well, and you see it in thrillers a lot. It's someone who comes off as a nice person, but really they're a bad person. They don't have a
mm.
reason to be a bad person. They're a bad person, but they make you think they're a nice person. They do all the things that fit with the life they have lived, but really, they're bad guys. Um,
Right.
and I think that's where that can work really well too. Is people who are bad with no real reason to be bad. They're
Yeah.
still bad.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean,
Some would say they're the
if
worst.
you
yeah, yeah, because they don't
if you
have a
have a
reason, right? They just
Exactly.
do it just cause.
Yeah.
Like,
if you have a story in which you have or you want to create a character who is just bad, I think that the simplest way that you can do that and make it work is you just don't really focus on the villain. I mean,
mhm,
if you have a whole lot of scenes, I see this a lot in TV. If you have a whole lot of scenes where the villain is constantly showing up and is just being bad, well,
Mm,
then that's when you're going to have people saying, like, okay, but why is he bad?
mm.
If you have your story based around the fact that something bad has happened and that the hero needs to resolve it,
Yep.
then you have an actual story. And in this case, that bad something is it just happens to be the deeds of, another person,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, like, let's say something bad has happened because my barn burned down
Yep.
and
mhm,
I need to go, raise some money to repair this barn so that my animals have a place to be in the winter.
Yep.
I'm thinking of I'm thinking of the inciting incident in 310 to Yuma. I just realized that. That's literally what happens. Somebody burns down his barn and he has to like go do the plot so that his family doesn't starve in the winter.
Mm.
yeah. But yeah, there's a way to do it well. There's a lot of ways to not do it well as well.
Mm. So it
um,
entirely depends on what purpose your villain is serving to your
mm,
story.
yeah. Yep. Yes.
And most of the really good ones do all of the types of villains, They
Yeah.
have evil force, they have uh, human that cannot be redeemed, they have human that can be redeemed, they have
Mhm,
human where you're not sure they're going to be redeemed. So there's
mhm,
Gollum, Saruman, Sauron, Boromir even fits into
mhm.
this a little bit. There's
Yep.
the
Right.
whole spectrum of good and evil.
Mhm.
Although specifically
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings, it's kind of the themes of the story, so that's why one of the reasons they do it so well in that.
Yes. Yeah. And hey, I think in modern literature, if you don't want to go, fantasy or science fiction, um,
Mm.
the books that usually do this the best, they do a really good job of it. Are generally your thrillers. It's the thrillers. Your thrillers will do a very good job of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
because they usually have a really wide variety of bad guys. And it's that whole you don't really know who's actually the one doing the bad things.
Hmm.
Because either you could have option A where everyone seems nice, B where there's a couple guys that are sketchy, but the others are nice, or they're all just like what I don't know which one. um, and those you kind of will see some redemption arcs in them.
Mm.
I think an author who does a good job of playing with those types of characters is Megan Miranda. I think she
Hmm.
thrillers, psychological thrillers.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's one of the genres outside of fantasy and science fiction that they kind of encourage you to explore that. Like people, that's what they want to see. They want to see what kind of bad thing did you come up with.
Mm.
No, that's cool.
And sometimes the bad thing can honestly be just someone being neglectful. Like, and sometimes it's someone who is redeemable. Sometimes it's someone who isn't.
Yep.
And yeah, a lot of it is like, can they be redeemed? Can they? Another really good novel that I think I might get you guys to read.
Mm.
Um, I think it's Lake Silence. Rachel. Let me make sure I have the right. Still House Lake series. That's what it is. Still House Lake. Um, and it's a series of books that follows. Yeah, the first one's Still House Lake. Um, follows a mother of two kids who
Mm.
she was married to this guy. She thought he was a great husband. He was always there for the kids.
Mm.
He helped her out a lot, like very supportive husband. And he had a woodworking shop in their garage.
Yeah.
That he always kept locked and was like, "Yep, can't have the kids in here. This is my space." Um, and one day she comes home and there's all these cops around her car or her house. And
Mm.
someone accidentally ran their car off the road and into their garage, and there was a woman hanging in their garage.
Mm.
Oh.
And so then she goes to trial. She is found guilty of accessory to murder. She does
Mm.
get acquitted. She had no idea what was going on.
Yep.
Um, but it very much plays with the idea of, okay, so you have this guy who is some level of psychopath,
Mm.
but then you also have all the other people, the people who either are indirectly involved because their family members were victims of his, or they're not involved at all. They've just watched the story and they've latched onto the story and are convinced that she's a terrible person too, even though she was acquitted, and make
Mm.
her life hell.
Yeah. Reminds me
Um,
of Gone Girl, the movie.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's written in a very different style from
Yeah, I
Gone Girl,
imagine.
though. But it's a very good series, and I think it really looks at what is evil, and it definitely has some redemption arcs in it. Um, and the other thing I liked about it too was it kind of explored the idea of is that something that you can pass down to your kids?
Mm.
Is that an inherited trait? Um,
Mm.
is it a learned behavior? It's a good series. I'm adding that to the book list.
Yeah. I want to read it. I should I also read Gone Girl? Do you guys recommend that book?
I haven't read it. I've
I-
only seen the movie.
it's a good one to listen to. It's a good audiobook to listen to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And actually, that author has another one. Let me double check. It's called something. I think The Silent Water or something. I gotta pull her up. Goodreads. Goodreads is great. Um,
We're gonna have a long list soon of things we need to
yeah.
read.
Oh no, Sharp Objects is the other one. What's that? There's another book that gives me the same feeling that Gone Girl does, but it's about a town. I think it's a town in England. It has a suicide pond.
Hmm.
People go into the water by Paula Hawkins. That's the one I was thinking of. Who's the same lady who wrote the book The Girl on the Train? So
I saw that one going around a lot a while ago, but I did
yes,
not read it.
yes, I was like Jill Kane. But yeah, I enjoyed Gone Girl as an audiobook. Um, Same too with the Into the Water. I listened to it as an audiobook. I kind of think the audiobook lends itself to their stories in a
Mm,
good way.
okay,
I think they do a good job of really building that pace well.
that's
So
good.
You know, Sam, I kind of get the feeling that you pick up a physical book and you start reading that, and then you put on a different audiobook, and then that's how you read so much.
I will because my library has audio books or books on DVD. So I will listen to them on the car in the car a lot on my long drives. That's one of the ways. I'm a really fast reader too. Like when I talk about those, beach reads or summer reads, I can usually sit down and read that in 2 to 3 hours, and that's like me taking my time with them.
Mm,
Um, uh,
I'm,
that, that's definitely a thing, and I have been known to, if it's a book that I'm only interested in the plot, like I'm like meh about the characters, I just want to find out what happens. I will
mm,
then start speed reading,
yeah,
like hardcore speed read.
indeed.
Mm.
I read fairly
When you say
quickly, but usually slow
when
enough
you
to
say
take
speed
in the
reading,
details.
does that include like skimming? Are you saying?
No. So skimming is more scanning. Speed reading, the kind of like the key for speed reading is you shut off that inner um voice that reads. That's how a lot of people read, is that
Yeah.
um in your head
Yeah.
you're kind of reading it. Uh Speed reading, you turn that off and you go. I have mixed feelings about speed reading. I'll do it, like I said, on books I'm not super interested in, but I
Mm,
want to know what the plot is.
Hmm.
Because you will read it well enough that when it comes to a lot of like multiple choice questions, you'll be able to answer all of them. But when it comes to the really minute details that build that visual side of the story for a reader, you end up missing out on that a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a good anecdote for that actually. Or it's not. It's more related to just how people read in general. There's a scene in one of the Stormlight Archives books, the first one, where he goes into great detail describing the environment of one of these cities, and it's mentioned about 4 times that there are bells all over this city, and the lore explanation is that they're there to warn when a storm is coming, or in this specific city to like show off that storms don't reach them here, and they're mentioned like throughout this chapter heaps and heaps of times, but and until I read it this recently, uh, I completely forgotten or didn't know at all that this city had anything to do with bells, and because the way you read certain elements of a story is you kind of skip forward to a character's actions or a character's dialogue, and you don't take in the description unless you are specifically curious about it in some way. Uh, and I think that's a one of the results of speed reading is like how many of these details you take in or ignore.
mhm. Yes. Yep. Yes. Exactly. My like normal speed, my normal reading speed is about a page a minute. Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like depending on the book, there are some books I can read 100 pages in an hour, and that's like the full comprehensive reading.
Mm, it's pretty good.
I don't know with speed reading how fast it is. The other thing too, I think that can make a difference, um, is a physical book versus an ebook. I can actually read a physical book much faster than an ebook.
Mm,
Hmm.
Um, and interestingly enough, a lot of the, like cozy mysteries is what they're called. But it's a murder mystery series. It's kind of, it's got a few twists and turns. It's just a fun little read.
Mm.
I actually usually enjoy them a lot more in a physical copy than my ebooks. Um,
Interesting.
I don't yeah, I don't know if it's the font or if it's just, the look and feel of a book. Um, that is a thing. Hands down, I will always prefer a physical book over a
Mm.
digital book. Um,
Well,
so that's why I like my library a lot. I have some friends who like only purchase books, and since I started going to my local library, I'm such a happy reader. I'm such a happy reader.
Yeah.
so why is that? Do you think?
I think part of it is you have that backlight, and it's a smaller screen. I think too there's something that just feels very always looks more professional when it's in a physical book. Like
Mm.
even with like a high fantasy novel on an ebook, it it always feels like you're reading a draft. Even if it,
Okay.
I but I think a lot of it has to do with the weight, like the size and font they use for the ebooks and the spacing on it.
Mm.
And the fact that like when I'm reading on my phone, there's so many more times you have to tap to turn the pages. Oh.
Yeah. I I swapped mostly to ebooks because of the opposite problem, which is that I like these giant epic fantasies that are really difficult to hold for too long.
Oh. I think there's something too. I kind of like visually seeing the progress I make in a book because when I'm reading, I don't even notice myself turning the pages.
Mm.
That's definitely true too with the ebook too. I won't really pay attention. But with a book, so I'll sit down, start reading it, get up, and oh look, I'm halfway through. Sweet. The ebook, I never get that,
Mm.
that like sense of mild accomplishment.
Mm.
right.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Can't see
uh,
if I yeah.
You
I've
know
been
what I always
reading
feel with an ebook too. Oh, go ahead.
well, and I've been reading 1,000-page books since I was in like fourth grade. So like the big books don't scare me.
Well, brag there.
Oh yeah, humble brag,
Oh, brag.
humble brag.
well, what I always feel is like, I guess when I have an actual book, or at least back when I was a more avid reader,
Mm.
it just felt like there was weight there. Like I'm holding this thing that has a story for me, right?
Mm.
Mhm.
As opposed to when I'm holding like my phone, I don't attribute my phone with storytelling or adventure or, anything that I actually get from a story. And when
Mm.
I go, I'm going to do it right now. When I go and I open up my Amazon Kindle app
Mhm.
and it says, loading recommendations and here's some stuff from your library, and I click on this picture, now I'm reading a book. It just feels a little like artificial to me.
Yeah.
It's not really something that has like any sort of significance. Like the same way as if I were to go to a library or go to, a bookstore. Say, okay,
Mhm.
I want this book. I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna take it home, and then I don't know. I guess there's also like the lack of convenience, um, because when I was younger, like obviously I can't just carry around my huge 1,000-page Order of the Phoenix, you
Sure you
know,
can.
anytime I want to, anytime I might want to read.
Oh yeah, just carry it around all of the time, every day. True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That yeah, and that's where the phone is really convenient. Is I run out of books, hop on my phone, more books,
Yeah.
more
Well, the flip
books.
side of that for me though is that before reading used to be like something that I actually had to sort of plan to do. Like I had to have the time, I had to have the book, I had to be in a place where I would be able to read.
Mm.
And I think a lot of that made it feel more like an activity to me.
Mhm.
Whereas now I kind of have the feeling that reading is like it's almost something that I do when I'm not doing anything else, which is sad, given how much I used to really enjoy reading. But
But did he cut out?
I don't know. Did he cut out?
I think the same thing might have happened. You know what? This used
Oh,
to
wow.
happen all the time when we were talking to each other. So it might be the classic thing. Should we send him a message?
Yeah.
Oh, there he goes.
You're back.
Is he back?
am I back?
You are back.
That's annoying.
Yes, it is.
On that note, I'm wondering, should we maybe wrap up for today? I kind of want to
Yes.
go eat some breakfast.
We've been going for 1:40, 1 hour and 40 minutes. So it's probably a good
Yes.
time.
Is it time to go do adult stuff yet, guys?
Like going to sleep for me.
That's probably the
quite.
most adult thing.
Yeah, yes. Took me a long time to learn how to do that one.
So on that note, thank you for joining us for this episode. Please
No,
please
word,
subscribe, leave
word
a
for word.
review, comment. Oh. Please subscribe, leave a review, comment, ring the bell, do all of the things wherever you're listening to this on whatever platform. We would really appreciate it. Leave some comments. Like, definitely leave some comments if you want.
If anyone watches
Look
this.
forward to chatting with. Look forward to chatting with more people than just you two.
Oh,
Oh no.
Yeah.
He
we're
doesn't
not
like
enough
us
for
anymore.
you.
It's not
Okay.
that you're not enough. It's that you're too much. I need people who don't know as much as me, so I can feel
Yes.
like I'm the smart one.
I've definitely found that before. Anyway, I need to end this recording, so everyone say goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.